I'd like to welcome everybody back to the House of Bricks podcast. I love all of my guests, but I'm especially excited to get into this conversation today. So this guy is probably, if not the most interesting man in the world, one of the top three or four. So every time I see him, he's doing something different on Instagram, whether it's MMA fighting, boxing, getting his hand bit off by a shark. And he actually is an educated guy as well. He's a doctor, uh, former Mr. USA. He beat me by one vote. I was very, very close, but
It was a
it's not
bone
about
burner.
me anymore. Right. It's about other people. And so I got off the stage before they did the vote and I just handed Ivan the trophy. So,
It was much appreciated,
well,
Adam. Thank
like,
you.
yeah, anytime. I am the key to his success. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Ivan Rusilko to the show. Ivan, great to see you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
As I mentioned, we're having on our show, we've had former NBA champions, top CEOs, business leaders. You and I met about 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
you were pioneering in the healthcare space, starting an integrative medicine business. But before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself, uh, maybe some of your high school sports that you played, and then how you got into medicine.
No, yeah. So I hail from a very small part of the world called Meadville, Pennsylvania. So right under Lake Erie, up there in northwestern Pennsylvania. And I grew up playing hockey. I was actually offered to go into the OHL, but I had also been accepted to medical school within 2 weeks of that out of high school. So it was kind of an interesting decision my dad and I had to make. Of course, helped me go the correct way, as he puts it. We'll see how that pans out eventually. And then from there, I couldn't pursue the dream of hockey, so professional hockey. So I ended up playing D1 at Mercyhurst College, which is in the MAC. And during that time there, I got into bodybuilding. Was pretty successful at that, which turned into the Mr. USA title twice. I won in 2008 and 2010. I got to travel the world and just see and do shit that nobody really ever gets to. So it was amazing. During that time, I was also in medical school, and I kind of figured out medicine can be so much more than what it traditionally is. And during that time, I kind of formulated what I would come to call lifestyle medicine, which is about treating people's lifestyles. And this is through very, very in-depth diagnostic testing. So every program is customized. So we're testing everything from neurotransmitters to hormones to things like candida and heavy metals. And then once we figure out those kind of programs, we kind of match into whatever you like. Better energy, better sleep, better sex, better mental clarity. You kind of name it. And I started that practice in Miami Beach in 2011. And since then, I've opened in Buenos Aires. I have satellites. I have one in New York. I have two in Miami. We're working on a couple more, working on telehealth as well. But from that, I kind of developed something that I really enjoy. It's the first and only of its kind, which is kind of medical adventure tourism. Where we combine psychedelic therapy. Well, I guess we can call it psychedelic therapy. It's ketamine therapy with real world exposure to pretty interesting events such as swimming with sperm whales, adventure canyoneering, polar bear chasing, you kind of name it. Which kind of takes people out of their comfort zone, gets them to grow on a mental, physical, and emotional level. And it's become my passion. I just got back a couple of weeks ago from the Arctic, where we chased narwhals and polar bears, and almost died in a Arctic blizzard. But you get to grow with every one of those, and it's fun to see people who have spent their entire life amassing a fortune or fame, but have kind of sacrificed their health along the way. So to be able to reintroduce these people into what life really should be about, which is living, not accumulating, is kind of a special thing as both a physician and a lover of life.
Backing up a little bit. So, I have four boys. They all play hockey. I know the level of commitment that it takes to get to, whatever level you reach, whether it's OHL, USHL, D1. Was there ever a time where you felt like you made the wrong decision? Like you have your whole life to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I should have pursued my athletic career as far as it could go.
There's not a day that goes by I don't think about it. I was the 245-pound guy who'd go out there and break bones, and I was pretty damn good at it. I think I'd done pretty well with it. I ended up leading the nation in penalty minutes, was top in scoring. It was a situation where I don't regret anything in my life because I love where I'm at. I love what I've done, and I love kind of the difference I've been able to help people make in this world. But there's not a day that goes by that I don't wonder if I'd taken a left turn instead of a right that night when I had to decide immediately because they were actually leaving for Ottawa, and I had to make that choice within 20 seconds. I don't regret it, but there's still a chance. I think I'm in probably the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. So I'm not ruling out a comeback yet, even though I'm about to turn 40.
A comeback. Well, as you know, I did, after I sold my second company, decide to play professional basketball at 32 years old. You and I have that same level of commitment and discipline. We believe that we can do anything in life. I'll be the first one to put a vote in for you to make a comeback. So there's still time. There's hope. Don't give up on your dream.
No,
So
of course
you
not.
go into med school. When did you start competing or decide to compete for a Mr. USA title or get into bodybuilding? Was that while you were in med school?
Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny. I was the first year in medical school, and had gotten to the whole bodybuilding thing. I'd done very well with it, and then that led to kind of like an international fitness type model deal, which was awesome. I was very lucrative, and being a farm boy from Podunk, USA, it was great to sit there and go to New York and have people take pictures of you and give you money. I mean, you're like living in a fantasy world, and then that just kind of led to them they actually got a hold of me to come and try out because the Mr. USA thing is not so much just about the body; it's about you have to have a story behind it. And me being first year medical student, they kind of liked it. I've been in front of the camera several times, which they've seen. So I went there in Boston. Lo and behold, I won it. And, I had to make the decision yet again with me and my father. And this time I didn't take his advice. I did take a year off of medical school. I got kicked out of the house for a minute, but I think after he saw the first paycheck, he was okay with it. But, my medical school was awesome about it. They said, as long as I come back and take the test a fourth year would have to take and pass it, then, I could take the time off and come back. So I'd be sitting there, getting shit faced one night. Then I'd be sitting there getting ready to walk a run race, studying kidney function and, pulmonology. But I was able to do it. I got back into it, did very well, graduated top of my class, won the Dean's Award. And that was kind of a fun little thing. When you realize you can accomplish anything, you just got to really put your mind to it. So I was able to conquer medical school in the fashion world at the same time, which, I still don't know if I don't know how I did it, but, it was a lot of very, very long and fun nights doing it.
The Mr. USA competition, everyone wants to look good. They want to have the six pack, have the guns, like I do. And I see you're sporting some guns there too. So it's just, what type of discipline goes into that type of competition? Is it the mental part that's the most difficult? Is it the physical? Is it the training? Is it the nutrition? What enabled you to do that?
I'd say it's mostly time management. When it boiled down to it, you have to love what you do. I say, I always tell people, you can't take weight loss advice from a fat doctor. So if you want to live and breathe this medicine and charge what you charge for it, then you goddamn well better look the part. Same thing with bodybuilding. I mean, if you want to sit there and say you're a bodybuilder, you better have the mental fortitude, the testicular fortitude, and the overall to get up early in the morning, to do the cardio that nobody wants to do, to make the diet choices. But you also have to do it smart. And that was one of the biggest things that I was able to do was, I kind of figured out how to work smart, not hard. Being a student in life, I in medical school, you unfortunately don't get trained in anything about nutrition, which is probably the worst part about medical school. I had to go out and get my nutritionist degree, which allowed me to make a lot more educated decisions on what I ate, because that's the most important part of bodybuilding is your diet. And then from that, I could I could cut a lot of corners when it came to my competitors who were, hating life because they figured they had to go so extreme when, thankfully, due to my education, I was able to do consume a couple things that most people wouldn't. And from that, it kind of gave me the extra edge to really enjoy it, because you have to enjoy these kind of things. Medical school is like a marriage. Bodybuilding is like a marriage. You have to work at it if you want it to actually work. And that's one of the situations to where you goddamn well better have fun doing it.
In medical school, you said they don't teach you about nutrition. How were you able to make that connection between what you're eating and how you're working out? Because my office, we're connected to Lifetime Work. Or Lifetime Fitness. It's a 5-story state-of-the-art fitness center. And not being judgmental, but 80 to 90% of the people that are in there, they're in there every day. They're working hard. They're trying things to lose weight, to get in shape, and yet they're not seeing any progress. What are they missing out on?
Again, there's no magic bullet, and looking good and feeling good is a three-pronged approach. You have to have the physical aspect of it, which is the exercise. You have to have the mental aspect of it, which is the commitment to it. But then there's also the emotional aspect, which is the love of it. There's a lot of people going there thinking, if you get in the treadmill and run for an hour, or if you bench pressing 500 pounds, you're going to look good, which is not the case. There's so many different moving parts to it, which is something I learned in medicine, just to see how intricate the cardiovascular system is. I just imagine what it takes to get a six pack. So it's just one of those things. things that there's a lot of people in there not working smart. They're working hard, which, you build different characteristics with that, but you aren't going to build the body you want by just sitting there and just doing the physical aspect of it. And miseducation or uneducation, I guess you could say, is one of the biggest viral components of what this world is right now. And if you take a look at it, medicine's probably the most terrifying part of it. Physicians are not taught how to live a healthy lifestyle. They're taught how to manage a broken lifestyle. I learned that on, pretty much the first year of medical school. You spend 3 weeks on cholesterol medication and you spend 1 hour on what nutrition is. And it's just, the situation is like, are we really trying to help people or just kind of profit from them? So that's one of the biggest lessons I learned, which I apply daily. And that's what's enabled me to kind of be the forefront, one of the leaders at such a young age when it first started. I mean, I came out at 28 as a full-fledged physician, and nobody was doing what I did. And especially in Miami Beach, which is the sexiest city in the world, you think, every doctor would be wanting to do it, but it was such an old school approach to such a basic but pure concept, which is something I learned very quickly, that you have to manage everything in life because everything is connected. Everything is, part of another thing. Getting the diet for that, getting cardio right, getting the actual fitness, how you're doing weights, how you're training, the mental aspect of it, the sleep, the hydration, the overall stress management, the sexual health. I mean, all those different things play into what when you walk out on stage in a teeny banana hammock separates you from the next guy. You also, like I said, and I can't stress this enough, you have to enjoy it, because if you aren't having fun in life, there's no sense in living. Even though it was a very long road, a lot of nights where you're not sleeping because you're on call, then you're doing push-ups just because you can't go to the gym because you're stuck doing surgery for 10 hours a day. It's one of those things to where you have to come home and just really find enjoyment in the hard parts of what make you you. And that's one thing I was able to find. Life's a party for me. There's not one day you meet me where I'm not at my best, at least on an emotional level. That's what I've come to find with with the fitness aspect. I mean, I'm 39 and I'm in better shape than I was when I was Mr. USA. And I'm working out less. I'm more liberal on my diet, but I'm managing my hormones. I'm managing my sleep. I'm managing my stress, which goes 10 times further than going in and doing 1,000 reps and 10,000 steps a day. Which is nonsense. It doesn't pay off in the end. So it was just one of those things that I learned very quickly, and especially coming from a small town, out of a medical family. My brother's a world-renowned urological reconstructive surgeon. My sister is a PA, and she just is phenomenal in everything she does. She works in the ICU, neurology, urology. My father's a chiropractor. My mom had her BA in psychology. So it's a very medically driven household, but it's also a very motivational household. So those who are around you, and this is why I love what you're doing with your podcast. You are a collaboration when it comes to your emotional health with the people you surround yourself with. And I always try to tell people there's plus signs and negative signs in this world. And if you can't sit there and spend 3 hours on a car ride with somebody, get them out of your life. You know what I mean? Like, everybody that I consider a friend, I could sit there and drive to California with and not miss one beat of a conversation. You tend to find that people keep people in their life because they feel an obligation to, or they feel a need to benefit from them in some way, which just adds to the stress of what life is. And there's no amount of money in this world. There's no car out there. There's no bank account that's worth, being stressed every day. That's probably the biggest thing I've learned, is that whatever stresses you in life, if you can get rid of that, the body will come, the energy will come, everything will start to work out, because there's no more roadblocks. But again, it's a hard lesson to learn, and I've been very, very lucky because I had some amazing parents the way they did it. I mean, my dad was the biggest dickhead you could possibly think of up until I was 18, and until I was not his responsibility anymore. And then he became the biggest friend and party animal with me. And I think he did it right. My mom was the loving super Catholic who made sure our soul was on the right track. I mean, she'd probably be devastated if she knew half the shit I've done. But again, it's having the right upbringing. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't afforded that grace. Life is luck, and some people just don't get lucky at the get-go. It's what you make of it. And, it's just about working hard, but working smarter, when you do it.
You graduate med school. I'm assuming you did a residency. What was the turning point for you? Because I remember when I started my first business, similar to you, I love to buck the trend and go against the conventional way of doing things. I decided at 19, I'm not going to go back to college. And my mom was very educated, doctor in education. Thank God we didn't have FaceTime at the time, because if I would have had to look her in the face and tell her I'm not going back to college, it would have, I don't know if I could have done it, but I actually went to a payphone where you put money into a machine and you call people. This is way before a lot of people's time. And I told her I'm not going back to college. I'm making good money down here in South Florida. Started my first business, $200, turned it into a multi-million-dollar business. But there were many, many times in that process where had those sleepless nights, right? Where you're working
Hmm.
all day, you get home, you can't shut it off. When you graduated med school, did your residency, what led you to start your own healthcare practice?
And this is going to sound like a sad thing to say, but it was just once you realize how broken traditional medicine is, you want no part of it. I mean, the day I graduated, medical school, and then I did a rotated internship because my business mind, I went to medical school to be a businessman, and for what I do, I only needed a unrestricted license, which is a 1 year rotated internship. I was accepted to UM Jackson for PM&R, but after seeing what I could do without wasting 3 more years of learning things I'd never use again, I backed out of that, did an extra year after that, and then I just opened up. And it was a tough decision to make. I mean, you get accepted to one of the best PM&R, which is physical medicine and rehabilitation residencies in the country, and to sit there and say, you know what, no thanks. There's a lot of eyes that, and furrows that take place over why are you doing this? But when you see an aspect of how traditional medicine is just made to basically prolong death. So you are considerably charged every month for your insurance and for medications. It just gets disheartening. And I wanted no part of it. I actually burnt my white coat on the day I decided I would never be back in a hospital. It was one of those things to where if I want to do medicine right, how could I Frank Sinatra just do it my way? And that was taking my history of, being athletic my entire life. I now had a nutritionist degree because I got that while I was in medical school as well. I did some personal training on my own, and I kind of combined all those into a lifestyle that you have to live through your medicine. If you take a look at my Instagram or any of my media, that I don't really promote my business, but if you look at what I do, I promote the lifestyle this medicine brings, whether it's jumping out of planes, tackling alligators, or doing whatever. The majority of my business comes from people just walking and being like, I want to do the same stuff. How do I do that? And it's about maximizing your physicality, mentality, and emotionality on every level. People who are in shape tend to be unhappy because they are so focused on being in shape. And that's one of the biggest downfalls. You don't get to enjoy it. It's just one of those situations to where when you learn how to manage the system, whether it's through hormonal therapy, whether it's through peptides, whether it's through IVs or a neurotransmitter balancing or whatever it could be, you can sit there and really, really augment a life, not just prolong a death. That's what I wanted to bring to the forefront. And if you look at it now, it used to be neurosurgery and orthopedics were the hardest form of medicine to get into. And those things are in the back burner now. The anti-aging regenerative industry, every single physician, my brother included, who is arguably the top urologic reconstructive surgeon in the world, they fly him everywhere, are now trying to get more into this industry. Number one, because it is very beneficial or very profitable. There's no call. It's very, patients enjoy coming in. But number two is because you're actually helping people. I have no training in neurology, and for some odd reason, I'm becoming a specialist in treating Parkinson's. Just because, I had one patient come in as a referral. We did it as kind of a, not an experiment, but he was on his last hope. 7 years of it. He's 84, just a horrible life, and he wanted to come in and really see what we could do from a completely different angle. And within 6 weeks, we had this guy, and he was enjoying life. And eventually, I was able to get him out and go hang gliding, a mile above the earth. So to see that kind of ability to treat things that are perceived as end stage, or there's no hope in traditional medicine, which for a lot of things, there is no hope for MS. You just got to manage symptoms. It's nonsense. And that's why I wanted to sit there and, develop something in medicine that would give people hope, not only that they aren't going to die, but they're actually going to start to live for once in their life.
So for our listeners out there, we've covered banana hammocks, wrestling alligators, an 84-year-old guy. There's probably 15 episodes here, so we may have to just do a series with Dr. Ivan here.
Oh, I have fun with it.
And I know you do, and it's real. And what I really appreciate about you is just my interactions with you is you really do care about your patients, you care about the outcome, and you're not willing to just accept things as they are. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that about you. You've been
thank you.
A good friend, and it's been inspiring to watch you continue to succeed. I know when I met you, you were really early on in the IV treatments and talking about peptides. You had a little office at the top of the Delano Hotel in Miami Beach, and now it's
loving life.
People, yeah, it was so easy back then, right?
Uh-huh.
It's definitely grown into a lot more than that, but it's well deserved just because, again, you're getting results. People are living a better lifestyle. When you started the lifestyle medicine business that early on, what did you do? Because I know Miami is a very competitive place for looking good. Like you said, it's the sexiest city in the world, or one of. How did you differentiate what you were trying to do from people for your patients that other doctors were saying they were going to do, but weren't really able to back it up? Because what I'm saying is there's a lot of options in health, fitness. Everyone's got a new diet. Everyone's got a new workout. Everyone's got a new way that they want to treat people. How did you differentiate yourself from your competition in Miami?
I used to really love this industry. And every day that goes by, I see one more gimmick, one more nonsensical thing that just some physician who graduates or comes out as a whatever, Harvard trained, whatever it could be, thinks that they're going to find something new, and it's sad. The way I differentiate is by how I looked, how I lived, and how I acted. I'm non-apologetic, nor do I ask anybody to be apologetic. I am what I am, and I think that's what kind of helped people understand that I fucking love life. You know what I mean? Like, there's not one person who enjoys life more than I do, and I attribute it to my health. And again, it's not just the health and how I look. And again, very seldom do you see a physician who's in shape anymore. Even this, even in this new budding industry, it's a bunch of overweight doctors who are already balding and can't do anything really outside, but they're sitting there pitching like they're going to give you the magic bullet that's like the next fountain of youth, which can be dangerous. I have patients come in and now I'm fixing more people who are coming to me because they've been hurt in this industry. They've been overloaded with testosterone or given certain things like semaglutide and Ozempic the wrong way and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, a lot of physicians are flooding this industry just because of the potential to make money in it. And then you have a lot of physicians doing it with very, very cheap pricing, which, that's one of the biggest things that I did. I found that, my patients are some of the wealthiest people in the world, but they're also the most committed. I have people who save to come to me. And it's nice because I always say if you buy a gym membership for $120 a month and you miss one day, you feel horrible about it. And that's how medicine should be, because, this is every day. It's 24 hours a day. You need to consistently monitor it. And when I first came out to differentiate myself, it was number one, how I looked and acted. And number two, my stance on, if you want to do this right, let's do it right. You are your most important asset. So if I'm going to invest in you as a patient, and I don't take too many patients, I have a very small practice. Everybody's a friend because I'm very selective about how in depth I go with somebody. So it's one of those situations to where, your doctor should be your hero. And there's a lot of physicians out there who just want to sit there and, get paid up front and then don't really care about the results. But from day one, when I first started this, and there was nothing on the beach, we were the first people to do IVs on the beach. My protocols were my own. But again, I'm consistently learning. I'm consistently on top of the game. Right now, we're about 3 years ahead of the curve, which is nice, with the stuff that we do. We'll do it, and then 3 years later, you see it on every single magazine. People are now doing it. But you have to be consistently learning and evolving and not just reacting. A lot of physicians are reactive. You have to be proactive. So that's how I kind of differentiate it. But then again, also, this is the sexiest city in the world. You got to act sexy. You got to be out there. You got to be seen. You got to be having fun in life. And that's why my marketing isn't me sitting in a white coat trying to talk about how great I am and about what this medication does. Patients don't really give a shit about that. They want to sit there and say it doesn't work. And I prove that it works through what I do and through what my patients do. So that was probably the biggest, defining factor of how I was able, as a 27-year-old country bumpkin from Pennsylvania, to come down to the sexiest city in the world and, nip tuck it as a Christian Troy would, if you ever watched that program back in the day, and just kind of own a business that wasn't here at the beginning. Thankfully enough, I still, pretty much command Miami Beach when it comes to what this kind of medicine is. And it's not because of the amount of money I put into marketing. It's just about word of mouth, and word of mouth is the most important form of true marketing. And that's why it's been kind of a very, very unique business scientific experiment down here in South Beach with how I've thrown this into it. Well, you are talking to a hockey player, man. That's pretty much what we're known
this
for.
This is amazing. So that will be one of the micro clips we create to drive traffic to the podcast for sure. So for the people out there, you have obviously the who's who client list, not asking you who they are, but for people that want to take a step into integrative medicine or some of the things you've talked about, IVs, peptides, where do they learn about this? Like what's a first step they can take?
Well, I think the first step you need to do is, everybody has a physician, their primary care. The first step you should take is review your physician. And trust me, I'm the most hated doctor among doctors, and I love that. Doctors hate me because I consistently encourage my patients to challenge it. And if you're on a cholesterol medication, if you're on a diabetic medication and you haven't been talked to about anything when it comes to diet, because all it is a robotic process. You come in, you do basic blood work that only insurance covers, which is 1% of what you really should be testing. And then if you have a cholesterol that's a little bit high, then they throw you on cholesterol medications, which then limits your cholesterol. Cholesterol is how how you build every hormone in your body. And if you want to see and understand why people are aging so rapidly right now, it's because everybody goes on cholesterol medication, and all of a sudden you can't make testosterone, you can't make DHE, you can't make any adrenal hormone, and that's why you're seeing so much disease. So I think the first step every patient needs to do is really sit back and review what they're on and why, and if there is a way to get off of it. My biggest thing is taking people off of medications, taking people off of anti-anxieties and antidepressants and all this other nonsense that just is a band-aid on a hemorrhage that is, a major problem. But 90% of it can be solved by lifestyle decisions, which is why this is lifestyle medicine. Everybody gets a diet program, everybody gets a fitness program if they want it. People get counseling, and I'll be the first person to tell them okay, you're in a horrible marriage. That's why you feel like shit. You have, terrible kids, whatever it could be. But I think it's, that's, a doctor should be the person who not only delivers bad news in a situation where it needs to be, but also gives you the advice that I think a best friend should, which is not always good. Helping people make decisions that are going to help fix a problem is probably the most, the biggest superpower a doctor has, but none of them want to use it. So the first step, I think, you need to reevaluate who you're being seen by. And then the second thing is diagnostic testing, because everything I do when it comes to prescribing hormones and everything else, it's all based off of who you are internally. And again, you're different than him, than her, than everybody. So everybody has a different program with me. It's not a one size fits all. And, medicine this day and age is a one size fits all, which is completely bullshit. You go through it. Over the years, I've developed certain panels, which are all basic stuff you can get done in any lab, they're really important ones. And I think that's what, people need to start doing now, is seeing exactly who they are. I like everybody's doing Fitbits and all this other stuff, but I mean, that's, it's somewhat, like you need to really see what your diagnostics are. And then from there, you can start looking at everything else, because that's your foundation. Your foundation is you finding out who you are and what you need first and foremost. After that is when you start looking at peptides and hormones and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of good information. I learned a lot of stuff from the A4M, which is it's a governing body which credentials a lot of physicians who do this right now who are looking for it, and that's where you can go there and just start Googling and just kind of researching. And if it's something that you see on major news and they're promoting it, I would say go against whatever it is, because that's all nonsense. But yeah, first and foremost is reevaluating who you are, who you're being seen by, and then kind of taking a look at what you are internally.
So you have a very successful healthcare practice and or lifestyle medicine business in Miami. So now to talk about your personal life, and it's actually combined with the business. I've seen some crazy things on Instagram, your Vimeo channel. Most recently, you almost had your hand bitten off by a tiger shark. So yes. Not only do you live life by the edge, but you're also a pretty smart guy listening to you. But tell us about that experience with the tiger shark.
The whole tiger shark aspect was super unique. I went there, and again, I do a lot when it comes to the medical adventures for the company's name is Balls Deep Living, which I love. So
is that your hold on? So is that your company?
Yep, Balls Deep Living was my creation. It originally was T-Rex Got a Hunt, and then I transitioned to something that's more, I guess, kitschy and
more
fun.
You,
more me.
Based on the sound bites that we've had already, I think.
It's and with it, what it is you sit there, and if I'm going to promote an experience and do it, I always go and try it first, just to make sure it's something that I would consider and something that's worth it, I guess you could say, and something that I want to take patients with, because I actually go on all these adventures with them. So this one was a scuba diving trip it's called Tiger Beach. It's whenever you see Shark Week, it's what's always on there. It's always the clear water with the gigantic sharks, and it's something I love doing. I'd done this for my birthday back when I turned 35. I did it the first time, and I'd rent the boat myself, and it was just myself doing it. But this time I work with a specific charity called Shark Team One, which is a 503c charity, a 501c charity, which is everything's a write-off, so it's always a good thing. And along with that, so I had gone out there with them. I did it. There was a group of, I think it was 8 people on the boat, and it was 6 dives over 3 days. They're giving us all these rules, like if the shark comes here, do this, that, and the other. And, I'm not paying attention. I get down there, and I'm the last person to go. And of course, you're supposed to wear all black, because if it's black, right, a shark doesn't want it. If it's white, it thinks it's a fish or something you're feeding them. So everybody goes in there, and I get the cameras ready. So I go down. I have a bright pink and blue BCD on, which they were not happy that I had, and I forget my gloves. So it's not in a bad way, but I was kind of a mess, but a happy, fun mess. And I get to the bottom, and within 10 seconds of me hitting the bottom, because you sit at the bottom and like they feed them in the middle, and they come by you and you sit there and watch them. Both of the 2 sharks, and one was a 13-foot, one was an 11-foot. The 13-footer was pregnant, so she was monstrous. The one comes at me, and I'm not paying attention to the other one coming at me because I'm so mystified. I'm watching this gigantic gigantic tiger shark for the first time come at me. The guy had told us if you hear a bunch of clinking, like tink, 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 because under the water, noise is amplified. He says, if you hear that, somebody's in danger. And he goes, it'll probably never happen. But, if you hear that, just everybody needs to look around because there's somebody that's in danger. And of course, I get down there, I'm looking at the shark and I hear the tink, 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 tink. And as I turned my body to see what it was, I literally pulled my hand out of the shark's mouth as I felt the water as it closed right on my hand. And thankfully enough, I have 2 videos of it to prove that I'm not bullshitting.
I saw the video. I'm like, this guy, I've seen you standing on top of an airplane. I didn't know if that was real. Like you were standing on top of an airplane while it's flying.
Yes.
I've seen you bungee jumping, but the shark is what got me. I mean, you were... There's no putting that thing back on.
It wasn't. Again, you're 2 hours out by slow boat. So, I mean, if I hit that and it hits the right artery, it's maybe Dr. Ivan doesn't make it back. But it was funny. And I've had now I'm up to 9 near-death experiences where I literally thought I was going to die. And that was number 8, which was only 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. So imagine how interesting
What's
my
happened
life.
since then?
The Arctic trip. So another trip I had booked 2 years ago was to Pond Inlet, which is like the 3rd highest city north. So basically the North Pole, almost there. It's the Arctic Circle, midnight sun. It's crazy. And you go and stay in the flow edge. The flow edge is called the line of life because as the ice melts in the summer, the narwhals and all the whales come by like right next to the edge of the ice to get to their breeding ground. So you go up there and you stay in these fancy tents and you eat all this fancy food and you go out and watch the narwhals and the polar bears come walking by and you just chase them around. It's really cool, But we get there and lo and behold, we get caught in one of the most crazy freak Arctic blizzards. You're not supposed to have an Arctic blizzard there this time of year. And like we get a thing like, we got to go. Like our guides are like, we got 2 hours. It's a 2.5 hour trip back. We're gonna get caught in this. It came out of nowhere. So we take off and like halfway through it, like we have Inuit, which now I understand. I mean, I grew up with Eskimo pies and Eskimo kisses and all this stuff, but Eskimo is not what you're supposed to be saying apparently. So it's called Inuit. So now I know that. And so we get halfway back and, my guide had given me polar bear gloves that his wife had made for him out of polar bear skin. It was crazy. And we're bundled up, heading back. And all of a sudden we get to a complete whiteout where we can't see, gigantic mountains anywhere. And we're going down a frozen fjord. And they just stop the things and say, everybody just hunker down. We have no clue what's going on. So we hunkered down for like 30 minutes and it's just blowing. Snow is piling up. You got like 2 inches of snow on you and you're just sitting there. Of course, again, I was probably a little high.
So what's going through your mind in there though? I mean, hang out. You're talking about a near-death experience, North Pole. Mr. Norwell from Elf is there.
I'll be honest, Adam, thankfully, courtesy of the ketamine therapy I've done for myself, and, I've done many treatments on myself, the fear of death, the biggest fear of death I have is dying in a very un-Ivan-like way. And I was thinking to myself while this was going on, like, if this is it, if we can't find a way back and we freeze to death out here, what a great way to go. You know what I mean? Like top of the world, it is what it is.
Literally.
Granted, I don't want to die, but we all finish second in life. So, I mean, like it's a situation was like, I was like, well, okay, this is okay. But the thing that really got me was when you sit there and you see your guides, smoking cigarettes and just kind of like hunkered down, they aren't that worried. So I'm just like, well, I mean, this is dangerous, but, I'm going to worry when they worry. And, thankfully enough, we got through it and they had one GPS and that was the only, I mean, if they didn't have that GPS thing, I don't know if I seriously don't know if we'd have got back, but, it took days away from the naturalistic part of what that experience was. But through that, it was the first trip I got to take that I really discovered the beauty of different cultures because the Inuit people, some of the most amazing people in the world. And again, I spent a lot of money on this trip. I had actually taken a patient was with me too, go figure. And, I want to see polar bears. I want to see narwhals. We saw polar bears. We didn't see narwhals, but that trip was worth every penny. And it was one of the coolest trips ever. And I'm actually planning on going back up in August to Manitoba to do the Churchill. You swim with, there's 1,000 or so beluga whales that come in to breed in the things. You get in the water and swim with them, wild ones. That exact
Well, it was
trip.
funny. I texted you about that. I was like, hey, what do you think about these guys? You're like, man, I had that trip booked.
100%. No,
and now
true.
after listening to this, I should have known that you had already planned that. I'm surprised you weren't on it.
But, well, again, yeah, I'm still saving my pennies to get on that one. So yeah, that's why I was at 25, 26. I have different funds. And like, so for me, every time you see me, I'm just waiting for my next adventure, which is what gives life meaning, I think. And it also gives me the drive to work harder, and help more people, but at the same time help myself to be able to see more and do more. And I think that's probably the most important part about what I've learned when it comes to to working hard is also you really have to play hard.
One of the things you mentioned is that life is experiential. And as we close here, that is really the purpose of this podcast, is to get people to enjoy the experience of life using the bricks of life as
I
to
love
build
it.
a strong foundation instead of carrying these emotional bricks of even things you've done in the past that were good, right? People hold on to past accomplishments. Oh, remember in 2010 when I did this? You didn't stop at Mr. USA. You didn't stop at the lifestyle medicine business. You didn't stop wrestling an alligator. Now you're talking about going to see the Titanic. So you continue to use life for you and those experiences. You sound very emotionally healthy as well. Is there something you can share with our audience of an experience that could have been viewed as a negative for you, but you were able to turn that into a positive?
Yeah, yeah, actually, yeah. In 2015, on July 2nd, in probably the most expensive restaurant in all of Miami, and I preface that for a specific reason, I was arm wrestling one of the bodyguards of one of my patients who invited me to come there. This guy's father was the only person to beat Bruce Lee in competition. So it was, one of these chips
At
on
the
his shoulder.
restaurant, you
At
were
the
arm wrestling.
restaurant, private
Okay.
room. Yeah, it was a very expensive room with very expensive people. So we sit there, and again, one of the things I learned from it was always set yourself up to win. And a couple drinks in, that's the one thing with alcohol. I love it. I mean, I was actually having a drink when when we started this, but it definitely does numb your ability to actually think collectively. And I mean that by saying is, so we wanted to arm wrestle, and I'd set myself up on the wrong side to where if you're going to arm wrestle, you make sure it's legit, because if you grab a table and twist, there's a lot of bad things that can happen. I couldn't grab a table, he could, and something bad did happen. It shattered my humerus, so I broke
I
my arm.
remember this.
Oh yeah,
I saw
yeah,
you when this happened. You can't, and you were so nonchalant about it. There
yeah.
was something like, I may not be able to use my arm ever again, or something. And then
Ever.
you're like, "How's the weather?" It
Exactly.
was very
Well, it's one of
conversational.
those things, and again, like you have to practice what you preach. And again, there was a situation to where I went to the best specialist down here. I was saddened by how traditional that they were treating the situation, and actually how hard it was to actually even get in. The reason I had such a problem with the healing, not the healing of it, what happened was because it was on July 4th weekend, and no orthopedic surgeon wanted to come in. So that, I mean, I should be retired right now after I sued Mount Sinai for what they did, but it is what it is. So I don't see anybody. My arm heals the wrong way. I finally get to see somebody 10 days later. And with all the hormones and stuff that I'm always on, I mean, I heal incredibly fast. So the bone healed the wrong way. So during surgery, they actually had to break my arm again, which unfortunately gave me a wrist drop. And it was a very severe wrist drop to where I mean, this was me. You'd be like, I'll give you $10,000 to give me to do a thumbs up, and I'd be like this the entire
Right.
time. So they gave me a claw. So I had a claw that would just, I mean, I could grip, but I couldn't come up with it. So I go into into Baptist, and I do the EMGs with the people who are looking to see my nerve conduction. And it was funny. I was dating a girl at the time. I just started dating her, and the nurse, the physician looks at me. She goes, "Honey, you're never going to have your right hand back. Your nerves are completely dead." So to sit there and all of a sudden have your life crashing down, this being like, you now don't have a right arm, it's going to wither, it's going to look horrible. I mean, I was the king of South Beach. I mean, I was loving it. I was great shape, making this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, you just got your wing clipped. And within 6 weeks, I had my entire function back in my arm, so much so that, like I still have the x-ray, and I still have every document that they said I would never have it. And it just went to the point to where while I was in that hospital the first night, they had to give me ketamine. And ketamine, I'll be honest, is what changed. The reason I'm sitting here talking to you and the zest for life is because of what ketamine did for me, which was show me that there is so much more to life than accumulation. I had always been so focused on being the biggest, the strongest, the best looking, having the best this, having the best this, which is the stupidest way to go through life. But again, dumb kid from Pennsylvania who comes in and he's thrown into the biggest pond in the world. You think you need that to make yourself worthwhile. And it was a situation where I reformulated my entire life in 45 minutes of one of the deepest K-holes I could possibly imagine. And I came out of it with a new look of, never never chase the rabbit. And by that, I mean, like, never chase things in life. If you sit back, relax, and just be calm, everything will come to you. And it was so beneficial to me. It actually is what led to me opening my clinic over here, Plasticity, one of them, which has helped out so many people, from people who are suicidal to people who are just overall anxious, depressed. We have people, Parkinson's, you name it, I'm using ketamine in ways that never thought possible. And if it wasn't for that day, I wouldn't be here. That practice wouldn't be here. And a big dent that I had made in the world wouldn't be here. So I think, as you say, something that could be perceived as horrible. I mean, like getting, told that you'll never have your right arm back when you're right-handed could be perceived as one of the worst things in the world to ever happen to somebody. But it turns out that was the best day of my life.
I remember seeing you like this. So I am a witness. I did see this happen. And now I see you doing backflips in South Beach. I see you doing one hand martial art moves on Instagram. So I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Pleasure's
More
all mine.
importantly, I appreciate your friendship over the last 13, 14 years.
Likewise.
Inspirational guy. And for those of our listeners that are out there, there's a lot of feminization of men right now.
Yes.
And I saw Ivan do this. And so you would actually fit in very well.
I did, man. I was very limp-wristed for a minute.
Yes, today's very feministic male culture. It's good to see someone pioneering how men, re-inspiring people on how men were designed to be, live, and act. We don't have to all push the limits like you do, but there's just something about being in shape, taking care of your responsibilities, being an entrepreneur, growing a business. And what I know about you is that you really do want to change people's lives. And I think that is the authenticity that you carry that a lot of doctors don't. And it's not their fault. It's nothing against doctors as people, but it's the system, the healthcare system. It's very symptom based instead of getting to the root of the issue in a holistic way, which is mind, body, spirit, physical fitness, nutrition, all the things that you've talked about today. So,
no, for sure,
Ivan,
man.
Dr. Ivan, we appreciate you. I'll call you Ivan. But this has definitely been the most interesting podcast I've had so far. And for people that do want to learn more about you and your journey, we're going to put their link in the bio of the podcast. And then people that want to follow you on Instagram and your crazy adventures, what is the Instagram name that they will, or hashtag that they will want to look up?
Oh, it's just, I have several, but it's just Dr. Ivan Rusilko will lead you to all things chaotic and crazy. So
we will close the podcast on that note. And I want to thank everyone for listening today. If this podcast did inspire you or any of our podcasts, please share this with other people. It's all about sharing our stories that really brings inspiration. So, Ivan, thank you for being on the show.
My